Hello, my name is Mr. Barr, and I feel like I haven't made a video in a long time, so let's see if I can remember how to do this. I'm going to talk about probability and probability of simple events. So it should be colon there. What is probability? Well, probability is the likeliness of something happening. So probability is how likely something is to happen. How likely something is to happen. So, what's the likelihood that I wake up tomorrow morning and I have turned green? Not very likely. What's the likelihood that I wake up tomorrow morning and my children are jumping on my bed? Very likely. So that's probability. And it's actually based on a scale from 0 to 1, with 1 being likely, like it has to happen, and 0 meaning completely unlikely, it cannot happen. One way of thinking about probability is probability equals the favorable events over all possible events. And I'll come back to that. Actually, I probably should have put this below the chart. So, as I was saying earlier, probability is written between 0 and 1, and there are a couple different ways to write it. We can write probability as a fraction. So, what's the chance of flipping a coin and it's heads? Well, that's 1 out of 2. There's one favorable outcome, heads, out of 2 possible outcomes, which would be heads or tails. I could write that as a decimal, which would be 0.5, or I could write it as a percentage, which would be 50%. I have a 50% chance of flipping a heads. Well, what's the chance that I roll a number cube, also called a die? I roll it and it comes up with a 3. Well, that would be, there's one favorable outcome out of 6 possible outcomes. That would be, what's that as a decimal? Let's see, 33, half of that. What's that? Is that going to be 16.6 repeating? Sure feels like it, right? So, as a decimal, that would be 0.166 with the 6 repeating. And as a percentage, that would be about 16.6%, or about 16, 17%. Let's do one more. As a fraction, what is the probability? Ooh, a deck of cards. What's the probability of drawing, I got a deck of cards, there are 52 cards, of randomly selecting the Queen of Hearts? Queen of Hearts? Well, there's one Queen of Heart out of 52 possible events. So that would be 1 in 52, which as a decimal, I'm going to use a calculator here. 1, okay, so got 1 divided by 52. As a decimal, that would be 0.019, a little bit of rounding. And as a percentage, that would be 1.9%. Okay, let's do some problems. Let's do some probability problems. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Sata is the costume manager for a large theater company. She has 10 different hats, including 4 visors. What is the probability that a randomly chosen hat from Sata's inventory will be a visor? So this is saying, what is the probability, the P stands for probability of getting a visor. Well, how many favorable outcomes are there? How many visors are there? There are 4 visors out of a total of 10 hats. This is the probability, the good outcomes out of the possible outcomes. That's going to reduce to 2/5. Favorable over possible. Jasmine runs a stable. 16 horses are currently boarded at the stable, and 4 of them are white. What is the probability that a randomly chosen horse will be white? Well, there are probability of white. There are 4 whites out of 16 horses, and it wants me to write it as a fraction. That's going to be 1/4, which if I wanted that as a percentage would be 25%. So if I randomly go into that stable and select a horse, I have a 25% chance of the horse being a white horse. You roll a 6-sided die. Here it is. What is the probability that it's going to be odd? And it wants it as a percentage. What's the probability that it's going to be odd? Well, how many odd numbers? Well, what are the numbers on a die? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are the possible outcomes. And those are the favorable outcomes. 3 out of 6. 3 favorable outcomes out of 6 possible outcomes. That's going to be 1/2, which is 50%. Welcome to probability. I'll see you in class.